The alien fleet hung above the burning world like a crown of fire, and iron ships stretched across the sky, blocking out the stars. The colony below screamed as towers crumbled and oceans boiled. The people of the planet had nowhere to run, for the Dominion left no escape behind wherever they marched. Their enemies were crushed, erased, and forgotten in the Admiral's eyes. This was not war. It was cleansing. At the center of the alien armada stood the flagship, a massive vessel carved in black. Steel its size dwarfing anything humans had ever built. On its bridge sat Admiral Kor, his scaled face cold and sharp, his crimson eyes glowing with cruel delight. The air around him smelled of metal and smoke, the sound of alien officers reporting. Numbers and kills echoed in the chamber, but he did not listen. He only wanted one thing: trophies. He wanted fear. And so when the guards dragged a single human prisoner before him, he felt a dark joy. The man was broken in appearance, burned uniform, torn skin marked with dust and ash, yet there was a steadiness in his eyes that unsettled the crew. The human walked upright, though his hands were bound, though his lips were cracked and bleeding. He did not lower his gaze. Kor rose from his chair, towering above the human, his armored robes sweeping the floor. He circled the man, studying him as if he were some fragile insect, one that could be crushed with the press of a claw. Then with a sneer the Admiral leaned close, so close the human could see the jagged scars along his scaled jaw. His voice was deep and mocking, and it rolled through the chamber like thunder. What can one human do against an empire? The words silenced the bridge. The alien crew stared in anticipation, for they too thought. The question was final. No human could resist the Dominion. No human could stand alone in the face of such power. And yet the prisoner's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. It was not a smile of madness, nor of surrender. It was something far worse. It was calm. The human's voice cracked from thirst, but steady. With meaning he whispered, "You'll find out." The Admiral froze for a moment, then threw back his head and laughed. The sound rattled through the bridge. The officers joined in a cruel chorus of alien laughter that filled the air. They laughed because they believed humans were weak, laughed because they had broken worlds, laughed because one frail man dared to speak as if he mattered. But in the silence that followed, something strange lingered in the Admiral's mind. He had crushed hundreds of species. None had ever dared answer him like that. None had smiled while standing in chains. None had whispered with such certainty. Kor shook the thought away. Nonsense. This human was nothing. A tool, a remnant of a dying race. He turned and waved his claw dismissively. Throw him in the cells. Let him rot with the others. The guards seized the man and dragged him through the steel halls. The human stumbled but did not beg. His eyes drifted toward the windows, showing the ruined world below, cities glowing like molten glass. The sight would break most men, but his smile remained faint, unyielding. The cells were buried deep in the ship, far from the stars. The walls were cold and alive with humming power. The Dominion prided itself on its prisons. There were no escapes, no weak points, no hope. Yet, as the cell door slammed shut, the human sat against the wall and closed his eyes in the silence. His breath slowed, his heartbeat calmed within. His skull, a pulse, awakened a whisper of code and thought, a hidden gift buried deep where no alien scans had found it. His vision blurred as data streamed across his mind, encrypted, invisible. He reached through the dark, across the void, sending out a message. The aliens believed they had captured a helpless man. They believed his chains had bound him, but they had missed the truth. Inside his body lay an implant, forbidden technology. Something only a handful of humans carried, a living machine. Bonded to his mind, he did not think of escape, not yet. He thought of signals, of frequencies, of coordinates. His whispers were not to himself, but to the stars. On the bridge, the Admiral sat once more in his chair. He raised a goblet of dark liquid in Triumph satisfied, another human world gone, another victory claimed, yet he could not erase the image of the man's smile from his mind. It gnawed at him like an insect in his ear. One of his officers approached, bowing low. "Admiral, our sensors detect faint anomalies, encrypted pulses, faint and scattered across the system. Shall we investigate?" Core frowned anomalies from the prisoner. He scoffed, "Impossible. The humans are clever, but not clever enough." His claws tapped against the armrest. "Send a team scan every channel, trace it. I want nothing hidden in my fleet." The officer bowed and left. The Admiral leaned back, sneering at the memory of the human's whisper. "You'll find out ridiculous. One man cannot harm the Dominion. One man cannot fight an empire." But deep in the cells, the human continued to smile as his hidden signal pulsed into the void. Faint, almost nothing but steady reaching for something far away. The Dominion guards did not notice as they passed by his cell. They did not hear the silent hum echoing in his skull. They did not know that the stars themselves had begun to stir. Outside, the planet continued to burn, smoke curling into the black of space, survivors scattered in hidden tunnels. But the war was already lost to them. Above their skies belonged to the Dominion, below their ground was ash, yet hope did not die. It burned quietly in the mind of one man. Hours passed, the Admiral grew restless. His laughter faded into silence, reports poured in, yet none. It pleased him the human would not leave his thoughts. He replayed the moment again and again, that whisper, that smile. He rose and paced across the bridge. The stars glimmered beyond the wide glass. The wreckage of human ships drifted in the dark, but still the memory clung to him with a weight he could not shake. At last he snarled enough, "Prepare an interrogation. I want that man questioned until nothing remains. Bring me answers." The guards obeyed swiftly, dragging the prisoner back into the chamber. The man stumbled to his knees in the circle of alien officers, his hands still bound, his face streaked with dirt, yet his eyes bright. Core leaned close again, his voice sharp this time. "What are you planning, human? What hope do you cling to? What signal do you think will save you?" The human looked up, his lips dry, his voice low but steady. "Hope," he said. "No, just truth." Core narrowed his eyes. "Truth, what truth?" The human smiled again, faint, almost invisible, "The truth that one human is enough." The bridge fell. Silent. The officers shifted uneasily. Some hissed in disbelief, others frowned in suspicion. But the Admiral snarled, pounding his claw against the console. "Enough, you are nothing, you are dust." He turned away, waving his arm. "Take him back. Let him rot." Guards dragged the man away once more, yet as they did a faint sound rippled through the air. A soft chime at the sensor station. "Admiral." A junior officer spoke, uncertain. "Our long-range scans. They just picked up something on the edge of the system." Core froze, his gaze locked on the screen. "What kind of something?" The officer swallowed, uncertain. "A signature we do not recognize." The Admiral leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Show me." And there on the far edge of the void, faint like a shadow, a single blip appeared, unmoving, silent, unrecognized. The Admiral stared for a long moment before snarling meaningless debris. Nothing more, but his claws tightened on the armrest. His heart beat faster, though he would never admit it. In the dark of the cell, the human closed his eyes once more and let the signal continue pulsing outward, steady, relentless, unstoppable. The Dominion believed him broken. They believed him helpless. But the stars were listening. The shadow had already arrived, and the Admiral's laughter would soon turn to fear. The cell was dark and silent. The only sound was the steady hum of the Dominion flagship as it cut through space. The human sat on the floor, his back against the wall, his wrists bound by cold iron bands. Yet he was calm, his breathing slow, his eyes closed in thought. Deep inside his mind, the hidden implant stirred alive with energy unseen by any alien sensor. The signal was faint, almost nothing like a whisper in a storm, but it reached across the void, repeating itself. Again and again, coded in layers of encryption the aliens would never break. It was not meant for them. It was meant for something else, something waiting in the dark. Above him, the bridge of the flagship was restless. Admiral Kor paced across the floor, his scaled boots clanging against the metal. His officers bowed their heads as they worked, but tension filled the air. The anomaly detected on the edge of the system still glowed faintly on the screens. The Admiral hated mysteries. He hated anything beyond his control, and this single unknown reading gnawed at him like a thorn in his flesh. He snarled at the officers. "Trace it, find its source. If this is some human trick, I want it crushed before it grows." The officers scrambled to obey, but the signals twisted, evading their scans like smoke slipping through their claws. Each attempt returned nothing, no pattern, no meaning. Only noise. Kor slammed his claw against the console, his voice a growl. "Then bring me the prisoner if he knows. Something I will tear it from him." The guards dragged the human back into the great chamber, his steps heavy, but his posture steady. His head lifted, his eyes fixed on the Admiral, as if he were not facing the leader of the most feared armada in the galaxy, but just another creature doomed by its own arrogance. Kor's crimson eyes blazed as he leaned forward. "What are you sending, human? What message have you hidden in your worthless body?" The human's lips cracked with a faint smile. His voice calm, just breathing words, like a man with nothing left to lose. "I only called home." The Admiral hissed, his fangs flashing. "Do not toy with me." But the human said nothing more, only silence, only the steady calm that made the alien crew uneasy. One of the officers leaned close to the Admiral, whispering, "Perhaps we should destroy him now, Admiral, before his kind can answer." Kor growled low. "No one human can summon an army. One man cannot summon salvation. He will break. He always breaks." The guards dragged the prisoner back to his cell once more. The door sealed with a hiss, but even as the iron closed, the faint pulse inside his skull went on stronger now, each wave of code leaping farther across the dark hours past. The fleet drifted above the ruined world, mopping up survivors, scanning for hidden resistance. But the Admiral could not rest. His thoughts kept returning to the anomaly far away, now moving slowly but steadily closer. The officer at the console trembled as he reported, "Admiral, the signature has shifted. It is not debris. It is a vessel, a vessel." Kor snarled. "What kind of vessel?" "Unknown, Admiral," the officer whispered. "Its design does not match any species in our records." Kor's claws dug into the armrest, his rage clashing with unease. "Bring more power to the scans. Identify it now." The image sharpened across the screen, a black shape against the stars, sharp-edged, silent, massive compared to the scattered human ships they had destroyed. Before the officers leaned back in silence, the air itself heavy as they stared. It was human. The Admiral's eyes widened for the first time. He felt a flicker of disbelief. No, human ships should exist in this system. Their fleets were scattered, broken, weak. Yet here stood one vessel cloaked in darkness, waiting. The Admiral barked orders: "Prepare the fleet, surround it, crush it before it comes near." But as the ships moved, the black vessel did not react. It only hovered at the edge of the system, its silence heavy like a predator waiting in the shadows down in his cell. The human smiled faintly, his implant glowing brighter in his mind. He could feel it, the presence in the dark, the response he had been waiting for. He was no longer alone. Kor snarled across the bridge. "Open a channel. Let us see what this phantom thinks it can do." His voice roared into the void. "Human vessel, you stand before the Dominion. You will surrender or be erased." There was no reply for long seconds, only silence. Then at last a voice, calm, clear and cold, filled the bridge. "Return our people, or face what one human can do." The words froze, the officers in place, the Admiral's claws clenched against The armrest rage burning in his chest. What arrogance, one ship against thousands. This is no threat, this is madness. Yet the silence after the voice was heavier than war drums. Kor snarled, "Destroy it, fire at once, unleash the fleet." The command carried. Across the armada, great cannons roared, beams of plasma and fire lanced through the void, striking the black vessel again and again. Explosions rippled across space. But when the light faded, the ship still stood untouched. The officers gasped. Kor slammed his claws down. Impossible. No shield can withstand such power. The black vessel began to move its engines, glowing faintly, but with a grace. No Dominion ship possessed it. Slid forward like a shadow across water, and then it struck. One flash of light, and a Dominion cruiser vanished entirely, ripped apart into glowing fragments. A second beam tore through a squadron, scattering burning wreckage across the stars. Panic filled the bridge, officers shouting numbers, fleets falling, chaos erupting. Kor roared silence, but his command could not mask the truth. His empire's might was being broken by one ship down in his cell. The human lifted his head, hearing the faint tremors of battle through the steel walls. His smile deepened his whisper. Soft enough for only himself to hear. One is enough on the bridge. Kor's fury boiled, his mind racing. He turned his glare upon the trembling officers. Send everything, swarm it now, numbers will drown it. The fleet surged forward, hundreds of ships, surrounding the lone black vessel, weapons blazing. Yet the human ship twisted through the fire, each strike tearing apart another Dominion craft, as if cutting through paper. The crew stared in disbelief, unable to comprehend the technology, the power, the silence. Kor roared louder than the storm. This is not possible. No human ship has this power. No human science has this reach. But deep inside he felt a shiver. The whisper of the prisoner returned again and again. You'll find out. The black ship unleashed another beam, the void itself bending under its strike. Entire wings of Dominion ships erased in seconds, their screams lost to space. Kor gripped the console, his eyes blazing with denial. This cannot be. The voice returned across the channel. One last time. Cold and calm, leave now or face extinction. For a moment, silence ruled the bridge. Even the Admiral could not speak. His chest heaved with fury, his pride shattered, yet his arrogance chained him still. One ship cannot defeat me, he spat. Not one, not ever. But in the darkness of his cell, the human sat with his eyes closed and his breathing calm, for he knew the truth. The signal had been answered. The shadow had arrived, and the war had only just begun. The black ship hovered like a shadow. At the edge of the Dominion fleet, its dark hull reflecting no light, its movements smooth and patient, as if it did not even see the hundreds of alien warships around it. The stars burned in silence, while wreckage drifted slowly from the last exchange. Pieces of Dominion cruisers glowing as they tumbled through the void. The alien crews whispered in disbelief, some calling it impossible, others fearing to even speak the truth, that one human vessel had destroyed an entire wing of the fleet in seconds. On the bridge, Admiral Kor stood tall, his scaled hands clutching the armrest of his command throne. His crimson eyes locked on the image of the human ship. Rage filled him. Yet beneath the fury was something colder, a tightness he had never felt in. All his victories he would not name it. He refused to call it fear. He barked at his officers' report damage counts now. The voices of his crew shook as they answered, "Admiral, we have lost 70 ships. Confirmed another 100 crippled. We cannot explain. The weapons, their energy does not match anything in our databases." Kor hissed low, his fangs flashing silence. "It is only a machine. No machine can stand against an empire. Numbers will break it." But deep inside he remembered the words of the prisoner. "You'll find out," and the whisper returned again and again in his mind. Far below in the prison cell, the human sat in silence, his eyes closed, his body still, but his mind alive with fire. The implant within him thrummed, feeding him images. He could feel the presence of the ship through the invisible link. It was not just a warship. It was something greater, something alive with purpose. It was his answer, his proof that humanity was never finished. He felt its weapons ready, its will unbroken. Guards outside the cell muttered uneasily. One spat curses in his native tongue, calling humans stubborn and insane. Yet even they spoke softer now, as if some shadow pressed against their throats. On the bridge, Kor lifted his claw and pointed toward. The enemy vessel surround it, press from all sides, tear it apart. The Dominion does not fall to shadows. The fleet obeyed, swarming forward, ships moving in perfect formations, their weapons glowing, ready to unleash storms of fire. The void lit with endless energy beams that rained against the black ship for long seconds. The stars themselves seemed drowned in light. Then the light faded. The black vessel still stood untouched, its dark surface shimmering faintly with some unseen barrier. Its engines hummed low. The alien crews stared in horror, and then the ship answered. Without warning, it unleashed a lance of pure white energy. A Dominion battleship split in half like glass, its pieces spinning away in silence. Another strike tore through a squadron, erasing them before their weapons could even fire. A third attack bent space itself, folding cruisers into broken fragments. Panic erupted across the bridge, voices overlapping. "Admiral, our lines are breaking. We cannot hold. Admiral, casualties beyond." "Counting, Admiral, their weapons pierce our shields. Nothing can stop them." Kor's roar silenced them enough. "No fear, no retreat. If one ship can do this, then we are already dead. We will not flee from prey." But his words rang hollow, even to himself. The human ship drifted closer now, its presence growing heavier, as if the stars bent around it. The prisoner in the cell smiled faintly, whispering, "Not prey, never prey." Then a sound cut through the Dominion fleet, a voice calm and cold broadcast on all. "Channels, return our people now, or watch your empire die." The officers froze their eyes, darting to the Admiral. Kor bared his teeth and spat into the channel. "You dare threaten me? You dare stand against the Dominion? We will bury your world. Burn. Your skies erase your name." The voice replied, quiet, unshaken, "One human is enough." The bridge fell silent. The words echoed against the metal walls. The officers shifted uneasily, some lowering their gazes as if afraid to meet the Admiral's eyes. "A human is enough." Kor roared, "Fire everything now, destroy it before it speaks again." The fleets obeyed, unleashing everything they had. Missiles, beams, plasma, fire. The void exploded with endless destruction, but the black ship slid between it all, twisting. Like smoke, no Dominion weapon could catch it. Each attempt only left more ships in ruin, as the shadow returned fire with impossible precision. The prison cell rattled with distant tremors. The human lifted his head, listening to the storm above his. Implant fed him visions of the battle. His ship danced in the dark, each strike a message not of power, but of proof. Proof that humanity was not finished. Proof that arrogance had blinded the aliens. In the command chamber, Kor's fury turned to desperation. His claws dug deep into the console. His voice sharp enough to cut. "Bring me the prisoner now. If he has called this thing, then he will answer for it." The guards obeyed, dragging the human back into the chamber. His wrists still bound, his steps heavy, yet unbroken. He was thrown before the Admiral. Kor loomed over him, his voice a snarl. "What is that ship? How does it exist? What are you hiding?" The human raised his head, his eyes steady, even as blood trailed down his cheek. He spoke simple words. "You laughed at one human, now you regret it." The officers hissed in shock. Kor's claws lifted, ready to strike. But the ship outside chose that moment to fire again. The entire vessel shook, alarms blared, lights flickered, officers screamed. Kor staggered back, barely holding himself upright. The human smiled faintly, just a breath of a smile, one is enough. Kor's rage boiled over. "Kill him now," he roared. "Kill him and end this madness." But before the guards could move, the black ship sent a message directly to the flagship. Its voice, calm. "If you touch him, your fleet dies where it stands." The officers froze their eyes wide. Kor's hand trembled. Though he tried to hide it, the prisoner looked at him and whispered, "You don't command anymore." The Admiral's breath came fast, his pride clashing with reality. He slammed his claw against the floor, shouting at his officers, "Attack, attack," until "It falls, do not stop." But his commands carried no weight. The officers obeyed out of fear, but their hearts shook, their eyes full of doubt, and the black ship continued its silent slaughter. Hours passed the battlefield, filled with wreckage, thousands of Dominion ships, broken, scattered, burned. The black ship never slowed, never faltered, its movements precise, merciless, its weapons endless. On the bridge, silence hung heavy, broken only by the soft sound of failing systems. Kor sat in his throne, his chest rising and falling, his claws trembling, his eyes wide. For the first time in his life, the great Admiral understood what it was to be powerless. The prisoner stood tall now, his chains still heavy, but his spirit free, his gaze locked on the Admiral. He spoke softly, yet his words cut sharper than any blade. "This is what one human can do. This is only the beginning." Kor's lips curled, but no laughter came, only silence, only regret. Outside, the shadow ship drifted closer, its weapons dim. Now its hull gleaming faintly against the stars, as if waiting, as if daring the Dominion to strike again, but none did. The prisoner closed his eyes in the quiet and let the signal flow outward stronger than ever, calling across the dark, calling to more than one ship, calling to the fleet that waited beyond the edge of known space. The Dominion thought humanity broken, but this was only the first answer. The battlefield was silent now. Broken ships drifted slowly across the void, their flames dimming. As they spun without power, the Dominion fleet, once mighty and unshaken, was shattered by a single black vessel. The survivors whispered to each other in disbelief. None dared speak loud. None dared admit the truth that their empire had been humiliated. By one ship, one human, on the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Kor sat slumped in his throne. His claws dug into the metal armrest, his crimson eyes burned with rage, but behind the rage was something deeper, something he would never admit, fear. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, the sound of failure echoing louder in his mind than any alarms around him. The officers moved carefully at their stations, their voices low. None wished to draw the Admiral's wrath, yet none could erase the truth before them. The black ship hovered in the dark, silent, watching, waiting, as if it had all the time in the universe. Its presence felt heavier than gravity. Down below, in the prison cell, the human sat on the floor. His wrists still bound his body. Bruised, but his eyes alive, he could feel it through the link in his skull. The black ship was still with him, still answering his call. It was more than a vessel, it was a promise, a blade born from the ashes of despair, its name whispered in his mind. Project Revenant, the final weapon of humanity built for one purpose, survival. He had trained for this moment for years, hidden in shadows, preparing, while the Dominion laughed, believing humans beaten, believing them broken. Now they would see, now they would regret. On the bridge, Kor's voice broke the silence. His growl deep, "Bring me weapons status now." An officer trembled as he spoke. "Admiral, our cannons are drained. Shields collapsing, reserves empty. We cannot fire again, not for hours, Kor's." Claws clenched, his fury boiling, useless. His empire had given him endless fleets, endless power, and yet none of it mattered against the Revenant. He snarled to himself, "No one ship can stand against me, no human trick can defy the Dominion." But even as he spoke, the truth burned in his chest. He had watched it destroy hundreds of ships. He had seen it bend the void with its weapons. This was no trick, this was power. The black vessel shifted in the dark, its engines glowing faintly as it drifted. Closer, slow, deliberate, every Dominion officer held their breath. Each movement felt like a predator stalking prey. A voice filled the bridge. Calm, cold return, our people or face extinction. The officers flinched, hearing it again, their hearts heavy. With dread, Kor spat his fangs, flashing, enough, you think you can threaten me. You think one ship can erase an empire, I will see you burn. The voice did not answer. Silence followed, but the silence was worse than words. The officers looked at one, another fear in their eyes. Down in the cell, the human smiled faintly. His lips cracked, but his voice soft enough for only himself. One is enough. Kor stood, his robes flowing, his claws clenched. Bring me the prisoner now, if he is tied to this ship. Then I will break him myself. The guards dragged the human back into the chamber, throwing him at Kor's feet. The Admiral loomed tall, his scaled shadow long across the floor, his crimson eyes burning. He snarled, "What is that ship? How do you command it? What have you unleashed?" The human lifted his head, his eyes steady, unshaken, his voice calm. Even through pain, you laughed at one human. Now you regret it. Kor's claws struck the floor, sparks flying, his fury unchained. Tell me now, or I will end. You hear? The human's smile grew faint but sharp, his words like blades. You cannot end me, Admiral, because if I fall, the ship will burn everything you have left. The officers gasped. Kor froze for half a breath, then roared, "Liar! No machine would bind itself to one man." The human leaned forward, whispering, "It is not a machine, it is us." The bridge went silent. The officers shifted uneasily, confusion in their eyes, but the Admiral's rage only grew enough. He bellowed, "Take him away, let him rot yet." Before the guards could move, the black ship outside stirred once more. Its weapons glowed brighter than ever, beams of light tearing through the void. Several Dominion cruisers, still trying to regroup, exploded in silence, fragments spinning into darkness. The entire flagship shuddered, the lights flickered, alarms blared, officers cried out. Kor gripped the console, his voice, desperate, hold position, shields to full power, keep them away. But his words rang hollow. The truth was clear. No shield, no weapon could stop the revenant. The human stood tall, despite his chains, his eyes locked on the Admiral, his voice cutting through the chaos. "This is just the beginning." Kor turned on him, his voice trembling with fury. "What do you mean, beginning?" Human whispered, "More are coming." The words struck the bridge like a blade. The officers froze, some whispering in panic. Kor snarled, "Impossible. You cannot have more ships. Humanity has nothing left, nothing." The human only smiled faintly and whispered, "Wait and see." Outside, the black ship unleashed its fury once more. Dominion ships crumbled one after another, the battlefield filled with wreckage and silence. The Revenant moved like a predator. Each strike perfect, each kill precise. The Dominion Empire was bleeding, and the bleeding would not stop. Kor's chest heaved, his pride shattered, yet his arrogance clung to him. He roared at his crew, "Fight, fight, until the last breath. The Dominion does not bow." But in his heart the whisper returned, "You'll find out." And he knew the human had spoken truth. The prisoner closed his eyes, his implant thrumming. He could feel it. The signals growing stronger, stretching beyond this system, beyond this battle. The Revenant was not alone. It was the first, the herald. The signal to awaken the others. Humanity had waited, hidden, building in silence, while the Dominion laughed. Now the silence was broken. Now the galaxy would change. Kor stood frozen in his throne, watching as his fleet collapsed, watching as the black ship drifted closer like death itself. His claws trembled, though he forced them still, his breath heavy, his heart full of rage and regret. The human opened his eyes, his voice steady, his words final. This is what one human can do. The Dominion flagship floated like a wounded beast in the middle of the battlefield. Its great armor scarred, its shields failing, its fleet broken around it. Admiral Kor sat in his throne, his scaled hands shaking, though he tried to hide it, his crimson eyes fixed on The black ship that hovered in the dark like a ghost. No light touched it. No sound came from it yet. Its presence filled every alien heart with dread. The bridge was silent, save for the crackling of broken systems and the soft groans of officers. Trying to keep the ship alive, their voices trembled as they gave reports, but no one dared meet the Admiral's gaze. The truth hung in the air. Like smoke, one human vessel had shattered the Dominion's pride. Down in the prison cell, the human sat on the floor, his back against the wall, his wrists still bound, his body tired, yet his mind clear. He could feel the ship through the implant in his skull. It pulsed with him. It breathed with him. As if their hearts were one, he closed his eyes and listened. The hum of the Revenant echoed in his blood. Steady, relentless, unbroken on the bridge. Core roared to break the silence. Enough. We are not beaten. I will not allow one shadow to end my empire. Prepare. The fleet regroup. Every ship that can still move will form around us. We will smother it with numbers. An officer swallowed fear in his eyes. Admiral, our numbers are gone. Half the fleet destroyed, the rest crippled. If we push again, we will fall cause. Claws slammed against the console, sparks flying. Silence, he thundered. We are the Dominion, we do not fall to prey. But even as he spoke, his voice cracked, his pride strained, and the whisper of the human prisoner haunted him. You laughed at one human. Now you regret it. The black ship stirred its engines, glowing faintly as it drifted closer. Slow, steady, every officer on the bridge stiffened their claws, trembling, their eyes wide. None spoke, none breathed. Then the ship went dark, every light across. Its hull vanished, its weapons silent, its engines dim. It floated lifeless in the void like a corpse. The Dominion officers blinked in confusion. Whispers filled the air. Is it dead? Is it broken? Did we win? Hope flickered across the bridge. Faint and fragile. Core's eyes widened. His claws gripped the armrest tightly. A cruel smile stretched across his face. Yes, yes, the beast is spent. It cannot fire again now. Now we end this once and for all. He stood tall, his voice booming across the chamber. Order all ships around it, press in close. Prepare the final strike, finish the human ghost. The Dominion survivors moved at once, their crippled ships dragging themselves into position. Weapons, charging engines, straining across the void, they swarmed. The dark vessel like vultures over a carcass. The officers on the bridge straightened their spines, pride returning, voices rising once more. Perhaps they would survive. Perhaps the Dominion's glory could be saved. But in the prison cell, the human opened his eyes, his lips curved into that faint, unshaken smile. His voice low enough only the walls could hear, not dead waiting. The Revenant's hull began to glow, a faint shimmer crawling across its surface like fire under glass. The Dominion officers froze, confusion turning to horror as the black ship came alive. Its weapons lit, not with one glow, but many thousands of pinpoints of light flaring across its body. Like stars, Core's triumphant grin collapsed. His chest tightened, his voice a desperate snarl. What is it doing? What is that light? The officer at the console trembled, his voice cracking. Admiral, energy readings off the scale. It is charging something massive, something we have never seen. The black ship pulsed once, and then its weapon awakened. A beam erupted from its core. Not simple fire, not plasma, not energy, but something greater. Something that bent the void itself. Space twisted around the strike. Dominion ships vanished without explosion, simply erased, torn from existence itself. The officers screamed. The bridge shuddered as wave after wave tore through the fleet. In seconds, dozens of ships were gone. In minutes, hundreds. Those that survived spun out of control, their systems failing, their crews begging for orders that never came. Core staggered back, his claws shaking, his voice no longer a roar but a whisper. This cannot be. No power, no technology. Nothing can do this. But the human in his cell whispered calmly, this is what we kept hidden. This is what you feared without knowing. The Revenant fired again and again, each strike rewriting the battlefield until only silence remained. only wreckage, only ghosts. On the bridge officers collapsed to their knees, their faith in their empire shattered. They looked to their admiral for salvation, but found only his shaking frame, his crimson eyes wide with disbelief, his pride broken. The human was dragged before him once more. The guards, unsure, trembling themselves, Kor stood tall, forcing strength into his voice, even as fear cracked it. "What are you, human? What monster have you brought upon us?" The prisoner raised his head, his eyes steady, his voice calm even through blood and chains. "Not a monster, only a mirror. You showed us what you would do to us, so we built what we would do to you," Kor hissed, his fangs flashing. "No, no, you are liars, you are weak, you are prey." The human leaned forward, whispering, "No, we were patient." The Admiral froze, the word cut deeper than any weapon. Patient, he thought of the years humanity had hidden, thought of the silence, thought of the countless times he had mocked their weakness. He realized then, too late, that weakness had been a mask. Alarms blared across the bridge. The officer cried out, "Admiral, the Revenant is powering something." Even greater core readings unstable. Kor roared, "Shields, raise all power to shields," but the officers did not move. They knew it was useless. The prisoner spoke softly, "It is not firing at your ships this time." Kor turned, his eyes narrowing. "What then? What is it aiming at?" The human answered, "The star." Outside, the black ship glowed brighter than ever, its body wrapped in streams of light as it aimed not at the Dominion fleet, but at the sun itself. The Admiral's eyes widened, his voice cracking. "No, they would not. They cannot." The human whispered, "One human is enough to break a fleet. One ship is enough to end a star." The Revenant unleashed its core weapon. The void screamed as beams of power struck the star, ripping into its heart. The light flared, brighter, hotter. The Dominion officers fell back, shielding their eyes. Kor staggered, clutching the console, his chest heaving. The star began to quake, its surface boiling, waves of fire tearing across space. The fleet scattered in panic, ships fleeing. Without orders, officers screaming into comms. The Dominion no longer an empire, but prey running from the predator. They had mocked Kor, sank into his throne, his mind spinning, his pride gone, his empire burning around him. He whispered to himself. Again and again, "One human, one human." The prisoner stood tall, his chains heavy, but his eyes shining with calm. "This is what happens when you laugh at what you do not understand." The star roared brighter, the battlefield consumed by its fury. The black ship hovered at its center, untouched, its hull gleaming with the fire of a dying sun. The Dominion had no answer, no weapon, no hope. And still the signal pulsed from the prisoner's mind, outward into the dark, calling to more than this one vessel. Calling to others waiting hidden in the silence beyond the stars. The beginning of the end had come, and Admiral Kor knew it. The laughter he had once spoken now returned not from his mouth but from fate itself, laughing at him, laughing at his empire, laughing at the regret he could never escape. The wreckage of the Dominion fleet drifted like ashes across the void, broken hulls tumbling silently, bodies frozen in place, fragments of once proud warships scattered like dust among the stars. Admiral Kor sat in his throne, his scales pale, his claws trembling. Though he tried to appear strong, his officers avoided his gaze, their faith in him gone. They whispered among themselves, voices low, fearful. None dared to say what all of them knew. The war was lost. The black ship hung in the dark, unmoving, its shadow swallowing the battlefield. It had struck the star once, and still the sun boiled its surface, blazing hotter, brighter flares, tearing out into space every Dominion vessel that tried. To flee was battered by storms of fire engines, burning shields, failing cries, echoing through comms, before they cut off into silence. The Admiral could feel the heat. Even from here, he could taste the end in the prison cell. The human prisoner stood. Calm, his wrists still, chained, his body bruised, but his voice steady. He felt the pulse of the revenant in his mind, steady, deep, unbroken. The ship was alive with him, bound to him, and through him the human fleet was listening. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing slowly, hearing the cries of the aliens, the panic, the breaking of an empire. On the bridge, Kor roared to break the silence. Enough, we are not finished. We are the Dominion. We have ruled 1,000 stars. We will not be ended by. On Shadow and one human, his voice cracked, his claws scraped against the console, but his words fell flat. No officer moved, no one obeyed, their eyes hollow, their courage dead. The prisoner was dragged onto the bridge again, the guards hesitant there, grips weak. The human walked forward, his steps slow, his chains dragging sparks across the floor. He looked at Kor with those calm human eyes, eyes that saw too much, eyes that no Dominion could bear. Kor bared his fangs, his voice a mix of fury and fear. What are you? What power do you hold? No empire, no species, no god has ever turned a star into a weapon. What are you? The human tilted his head, his voice quiet yet cutting. We are what you made us, every threat, every war, every empire that tried. To break us we learned, we remembered, we built. We waited, you laughed at us. You called us weak, but you never asked why we smiled when you said it. Kor froze. The words struck deeper than any weapon. Patient, the human had said before. Patient, now it echoed in his skull. He felt his chest tighten, his breath quicken. He wanted to roar, to strike, to kill the prisoner, but his claws shook too much. He could not lift his hand. The revenant stirred again, its black hull, glowing faint streams of light racing across its body like rivers of fire. The officers cried out, Admiral, energy surge building faster than before. This is different, this is stronger. Kor hissed, what is it targeting now? Answer me. The human answered calmly, not your fleet, not your empire, not your throne. Kor snarled, then what? The prisoner's lips curled into the faintest smile, the Dominion itself. Outside, the black ship released a pulse, not a weapon, but a signal, a deep thrumming wave that rippled through space faster than light, faster than thought. Dominion outposts across the sector heard it, Dominion colonies felt it, Dominion ships, light years away, caught the whisper. Every Dominion heart felt the chill. It was not a strike, it was a message, a warning, a declaration that the age of the Dominion was ending. On the bridge, comms erupted, voices screaming, reports flooding in, outposts, burning fleets, vanishing colonies falling without battle. Something unseen striking everywhere at once. Kor staggered to his feet, his eyes wide. What have you done? What are you calling? The human stood tall, his chains heavy, but his voice steady. They are not alone out there. We never were. You thought you had crushed us. You thought you had broken us. You thought one human was all there was. But now you see the truth. One is never alone. Not when the stars remember. The black ship pulsed again, and from the dark they came first. One, then many shadows slipping. From nothingness, ships, black as night ships, older than any Dominion record ships, built in silence, waiting in patience. Human ships, the Dominion officers fell to their knees, despair filling their eyes. They had no fight left, no hope left. The fleet that had mocked one human now saw hundreds, thousands, all born from the same silence, all carrying the same fire. Kor roared, his voice raw, his pride breaking. No, no, this cannot be. You were scattered, you were weak, you had nothing. The human stepped forward, his eyes never leaving. The Admiral's weakness is a mask, patience is a weapon. We wore both until the day came when we no longer needed to hide. The stars filled with black ships, their presence heavy, their weapons alive. The Dominions, empire that had stretched across 1,000 systems, now felt small. Fragile, fleeting Kor sank back into his throne, his claws limp, his voice a broken whisper. One human, one human. The human answered, not one, many. You should have feared us all. Revenant's core flared once more brighter than ever, the battlefield lit, as if a new sun was born, the Dominion fleet. What remained of it broke apart in terror ships, fleeing in every direction. No formation, no order, no empire, only panic, only fear, only regret on the bridge. Silence fell broken only by the soft hum of the humans' chains and the steady thrum of the Revenant. Outside, the war was not over, but its end had begun, and Admiral Kor felt the weight of it crushing his soul. The prisoner whispered softly, so only Kor could hear. You asked what one human could do now. You know, but this is only the beginning. Kor's eyes widened, his breath caught the beginning, not the end. The thought filled him with dread far worse than death itself. The stars trembled with the hum of engines as the Black Fleet arrived, one by one. They emerged from the void ships that should not exist, ships that no Dominion record ever listed, ships that were silent for centuries waiting. They surrounded the battlefield. Like a wall of night, each one vast, each one alive, each one carrying the same fire as the Revenant, the same rage, the same patience. On the Dominion bridge, Admiral Kor could not speak, his throat dry, his claws shaking, his mind collapsing. He had commanded fleets that spanned the galaxy. He had broken worlds, crushed armies, enslaved races. He had never known fear. Until now, the black ships stretched farther than his eyes could see, each of them death, each of them human. The prisoner stood tall, chains still locked, but his posture unbroken. His voice calm, steady, every word sharp as a blade. We warned you. You thought us weak. You thought us scattered. You thought one human was nothing. You laughed now. You see what one human means, because one human is never alone. One human is the spark that calls the storm. Kor shook his head. His fangs bared, his voice cracking. You cannot, you should not. No empire, no species can hold such power. It will consume you. The human's eyes were cold, it already. As you, the Revenant pulsed its black hull, glowing brighter than a sun. Its voice rang in every mind, not in words, but in feeling, in memory. The sorrow of wars past, the silence of waiting, the promise of return. Dominion soldiers collapsed, clutching, their heads crying out, overwhelmed by visions of what was to come. The Dominion fleet broke apart. What ships remained turned and fled, but the black ships moved faster than thought, shadows darting across light, cutting through engines, shields, hulls. Whole cruisers vanished without fire, just gone into nothing. Their screams echoing for a second, then silence. On the ground across Dominion worlds, cities looked up as their skies darkened, the black ships appearing like storms, lightning running across. Their hulls, suns dimmed. Power grids failed, voices cried out in terror across billions. The Dominion people had always believed their empire eternal. Now they saw how fragile it truly was. Kor's officers abandoned their posts. Some fell to their knees, begging the human prisoner for mercy. Others clawed at the walls, trying to escape, trying to flee anywhere but here. Kor alone remained in his throne, broken still, staring eyes wide, as the human walked closer, chains dragging sparks across the floor. The human stopped before him, close enough that Kor could see his eyes clearly. Those human eyes, unshaken, unbroken, filled with something deeper than hate, filled with the quiet certainty of patience. The human spoke softly, so only the Admiral could hear. Empires laugh at one human, until they learn what one human means. Kor's breath shuddered, his claws dropped to his side. His strength gone, his empire gone, his pride gone. He whispered, broken. What are you? What are humans? The human leaned closer, his voice no louder than a whisper. We are forever. The Revenant answered the words with action. Light erupted from its core, brighter than a star, blinding all who saw it. The Black Fleet followed in unison. Their weapons did not fire. They did not need to. Instead, their presence alone bent space, bent time, bent the very heart of the Dominion, and the Empire shattered across the galaxy. Dominion systems went dark, one by one. Their fleets erased their colonies, silenced their leaders. Gone, the shadow swept across the stars, unstoppable, untouchable, unending. On the bridge, the human stood still, his chains falling loose to the floor, the metal clattering against the silent deck. The guards gone, the officers gone. Only core remained. Frozen hollow, the prisoner, no longer a prisoner, simply human. The human turned to the viewport, watching the black ships move in endless formation, his voice calm, final. This is the price of laughter. This is the price of arrogance. This is the price of forgetting what humans are. Core slumped in his throne, the last admiral of the Dominion, watching helpless as the empire he built burned into silence. His final words, barely a breath, one human. The Revenant answered with silence, its dark hull fading into shadow once more, waiting patient as always, waiting for the next laugh, waiting for the next empire, waiting for the next reminder of what one human could do. And in the dark, the stars themselves seemed to whisper the words over and over, one human, one human.